What are the best two words in gaming? Boss battle. In the vast landscape of video games, there are many elements that players remember long after the credits roll. A clever puzzle, a breathtaking cutscene, a plot twist that flips everything upside down. All of these can linger in the mind, but few moments leave as strong as an impression as the boss fight. Boss fights are much more than just bigger health bars and harder attacks. They are the ultimate showcase of a game's mechanics, its themes, and its sense of drama. A good boss fight doesn't just challenge the player mechanically, it creates a moment that feels larger than life. It's not simply about winning, but facing something iconic. But what makes a good boss fight memorable? Let's begin with the boss who started it all for many players, the king of the Koopas, Bowser. As the primary antagonist of Nintendo's Super Mario franchise, Bowser has loomed large in gaming culture for nearly 4 decades. He's not just an enemy to defeat, he's the archetype of a final boss, the foe waiting at the end of the castle, the challenge that caps off Mario's adventure. Bowser embodies the qualities of a good boss fight because of his design, music, and his role as a narrative finale. His menacing look, the dramatic soundtrack that accompanies his battles, and his repetitive function as the climactic test for players across generations combine to make him unforgettable. Bowser first appeared in Super Mario Bros. In 1985 on the NES. His role was simple. He kidnapped Princess Peach and held her hostage in a castle, forcing Mario to travel through dangerous worlds to rescue her. At the end of each castle, players faced Bowser. Even in his primitive form, Bowser stood out. On a console limited by 8-bit graphics, his sprite conveyed a sense of menace. He was large compared to Mario, adorned with spikes, claws, and a fiery breath attack. His design communicated danger instantly. Unlike the Goombas or the Koopa Troopers encountered earlier, Bowser wasn't just another obstacle, he was the boss. He's essentially this dragon, turtle, bear monster thing, and a spiked, fire-breathing creature with a reptilian snarl, while his exaggerated cartoonish proportions ensure he doesn't cross into being too frightening for younger audiences. This balance between threatening but playful is crucial. Mario has always been a colorful, whimsical series, and Bowser reflects that. He's scary enough to feel like a real challenger, but not so dark or grotesque that he breaks the family-friendly atmosphere. Over the years, Bowser's design has evolved, but the core elements remain unchanged. From the pixelated sprite of 1985 to the detailed 3D model in Super Mario Odyssey. This consistency reinforces his role as a final boss. If Bowser's design established his menace visually, his music does so sonically. The original Mario Bros. Gave him a simple but effective theme, repetitive, minor key notes that conveyed tension. It wasn't complex, but it didn't need to be. By Super Mario Galaxy, the series had embraced full orchestration. Bowser's music became more operatic, with sweeping strings and booming choruses that made the battles feel almost like cinematic showdowns. In the original Super Mario Bros., he wasn't defeated by direct combat, but by using strategy, dodging his fire and leaping over him to cut the bridge beneath his feet. This forced players to think differently than they had throughout the other levels. In Mario 64, players had to grab his tail and spin him around into bombs. This was a clever way to utilize the new 3D mechanics of the game. In Galaxy, fights often involve platforming challenges requiring players to navigate collapsing arenas while avoiding attacks. But what's consistent across all Bowser fights is that they're all climactic tests of everything the player has learned. They aren't impossible challenges, but they require mastery of the game's core mechanics. In a way, Bowser is less a single boss and more a template. He showed developers that boss fights could be memorable, thematic, and emotionally satisfying. Without Bowser, the concept of a final boss might not have become as central to video games as it is today. Every boss that would come after owes a little something to the King of Koopas. Where Bowser represents the classic archetype of video game bosses, then Sephiroth represents the evolution of the boss fight into something cinematic and emotionally devastating. Introduced as the primary antagonist of Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth is one of the most iconic bosses in video game history, and also one of the most memorable villains across all media. What makes Sephiroth so enduring is the perfect storm of his design, music, and narrative weight, and the sheer spectacle of his boss battle. He is tall, lean, and graceful, standing in stark contrast to the bulkier armored villains often seen in video games before him. He looks like a man, but one elevated above human limits. His single black wing, which emerges in the final battle, transforms him from man into the biblical figure Lucifer. His weapon, Masamune, an impossibly long katana that looks both elegant and absurd. The Masamune is more than a weapon, it's a visual metaphor for Sephiroth's reach and his ability to influence the events and lives of our main characters from afar. From the moment his backstory is revealed, the player understands that this isn't simply an enemy to defeat, but a former hero turned villain consumed by the truth of his creation. Nobuo Uematsu's One-Winged Angel is widely regarded as one of the greatest boss themes ever composed, and for good reason. It shattered expectations of what video game music could be in the 90s. The track begins with ominous orchestral swells, then explodes into a bombastic fusion of classical and rock elements. At the time, hearing human voices chant during a boss fight was unheard of in a video game. The lyrics are largely nonsensical Latin phrases with apocalyptic undertones, which makes the soundtrack sound like a demonic requiem. Musically, the piece alternates between tension and release. Rapid string passages create anxiety, while the pounding percussion drives a sense of urgency. It's also worth noting how One-Winged Angel invokes other works of classical and film music, but the message is clear. Sephiroth isn't just a bad guy, he is the apocalyptic force, the Angel of Death. But the actual fight against Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII is less about raw difficulty and more about spectacle. The most infamous mechanic is Sephiroth's supernova attack. When triggered, the game plays a cinematic cutscene showing an apocalyptic explosion that travels through the solar system, destroying planets before finally striking the player. It's absurd, over the top, and takes nearly a full minute to complete, but it makes the fight feel monumental. Sephiroth took the concept of a final boss and elevated it into something mythic, and in doing so, he ensured his place as one of gaming's greatest villains. Volo, the Betrayer. When players think of Pokemon, boss fights usually aren't the first thing that come to mind. The franchise has always been about adventure, exploration, and collection, with the difficulty aimed at accessibility rather than a punishing challenge. In Pokemon Legends Arceus, Game Freak surprised players by developing a true boss fight in the form of Volo. His fight against the player is one of the most intense, story-driven, and musically striking encounters Pokemon has ever produced. He is introduced as a traveling merchant, cheerful and friendly, offering helpful advice and trading goods. His design reflects his approachable nature, light clothing, a wide smile, and a demeanor that seems harmless. But beneath that exterior lies a darker ambition. Volo is obsessed with uncovering the mysteries of Pokemon and the universe itself. His polite curiosity slowly reveals itself to be something far more sinister, a hunger for ultimate power and knowledge. This heel turn makes his inevitable role as the final boss more impactful. Unlike traditional villains whose menace is apparent from the beginning, Volo's danger is hidden in plain sight. His design as a friend turned foe creates an emotional shock that adds gravity to the battle. Volo's significance is amplified by his connection to Cynthia, one of the most beloved and feared champions in Pokemon history. His appearance and demeanor mirrors hers, from the hairstyle to his calm yet calculating personality. This is not accidental. Volo's lineup is strategically designed to punish unprepared players. He fields a diverse team with no glaring weaknesses, forcing players to think several moves ahead. Togekiss, Spiritomb, Roserade, Lucario, Arcanine, and the devil himself, Garchomp, ensures that nearly every type matchup is covered. But the fight doesn't end there. After defeating Volo's team, the player is immediately forced into a battle against Giratina, the renegade Pokemon, in not one, but two forms. The lack of a break between these phases makes the encounter one of the longest and most grueling in the series. Healing items are limited, and Giratina's powerful moves can quickly overwhelm even well-prepared teams. Perhaps the most striking element of Volo's boss fight is his music. Pokemon has always had memorable themes, but Volo is something else entirely. Volo proves that Pokemon can do boss fights as well as any other franchise. His battle is grueling, his design is memorable, and his music is haunting, and his narrative weight is immense. He is Pokemon's most menacing boss, and perhaps its greatest. Zeus, the inevitability. If Volo represents Pokemon's surprising foray into real boss fights, then Zeus from God of War represents the very essence of what a boss battle can be. Brutal, cinematic, personal, and mythic. Zeus isn't just another antagonist, he is the apex of Kratos' journey, both narratively and mechanically. The battle against him is one of the most famous in gaming history because it embodies everything a final boss should be.
Put her down! As you wish.
He is the father, the tyrant, and the god of gods, and Kratos' destiny has always been to kill him. From the very first God of War, Zeus looms large. Even though he doesn't serve as the final antagonist until God of War 2 and God of War 3, his presence is felt throughout the whole series. Less like a benevolent ruler and more like a dictator masquerading as one, the kind of father who commands obedience through fear. The brilliance of Zeus's design is how it mirrors Kratos' own. Both are hulking warriors who wield unfathomable strength. Both are defined by their rage and pride, and both are willing to destroy everything to achieve their goals. Kratos sees himself in his father and sees that they are not that different. This duality makes the battle between them more than just a fight for Olympus. It is a battle for identity. It becomes clear that his ultimate enemy is not just any god, it's his father. But Zeus embodies everything Kratos despises: manipulation, betrayal, and the abuse of power. But he also embodies Kratos' greatest fear, that he too is doomed to repeat the sins of his father. The final battle is not just a clash of swords, but a clash of philosophies. Order versus chaos, father versus son, and destiny versus defiance. This is what elevates the Zeus fight beyond spectacle. But the fight against Zeus is notoriously grueling, designed to test every skill the player has ever learned in the past 3 games. Zeus doesn't rely on gimmicks or cinematic flair alone. He is a relentless fighter who uses raw power, speed, and variety to overwhelm Kratos. In the Titan stage, the battle begins on the back of Gaia. As Kratos and Zeus fight atop a living mountain, the stage is on a primordial being, making the battle feel mythic in scope. Zeus uses thunderbolts, teleportation, and brutal melee strikes to punish reckless players. The fight then transitions into the throne room of Olympus, where Zeus grows even more aggressive. At the end, the player isn't controlling Kratos' rage, they are his rage. And this is all held together by Zeus' amazing theme. The drums pound like thunder, reinforcing Zeus' identity as the god of storms. Each strike feels colossal, as if Olympus itself is trembling. The music changes across phases, moving from cosmic spectacle to intimate brutality. By the final phase, much of the grand theme is stripped away, in reflection on how the godly conflict has been reduced to pure survival. The battle against Zeus cemented God of War as one of the greatest action franchises of all time. And in God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, the themes of fathers and sons return. But now Kratos is in Zeus' position, struggling to avoid repeating his father's mistakes. The ghost of Zeus lingers not just in Kratos' nightmares, but in the DNA of the series itself. Zeus is the inevitable showdown, the father that must be slain, the tyrant that must fall, and the god that must bleed. Malenia, the test. In the land between, there are many gods, demigods, and monsters. But ask any Elden Ring player who the hardest boss in the game is, pre-DLC of course, and most will answer with the same name, said with awe, dread, and a little trauma: Malenia, Blade of Miquella. She is elegance and brutality distilled into one character. Her fight is about patience, precision, and persistence. To defeat Malenia is to prove you have understood everything Elden Ring has been teaching you. From the moment she appears, Malenia is striking. She is tall and slender, armored in flowing gold and scarlet. Her mask conceals much of her face, leaving her presence mysterious and alien. Unlike the grotesque monstrosities that make up Elden Ring bosses, Malenia's design is beautiful. Her elegance contrasts her brutality, making the fight feel less like slaying a beast and more like dueling the perfect warrior. And then there's her sword, a long curved blade that seems to dance in her hands. Every swing, every flourish looks choreographed, almost like she's fencing. Her fight is not about raw power, but about speed, grace, and precision. She is the mirror of the player, a reminder that in Elden Ring, you are not just fighting monsters, you are fighting gods, warriors, and ideals. Malenia is a twin sister of Miquella, one of the most mysterious figures in Elden Ring. She is cursed with red rot, a disease that should have destroyed her, but instead has been weaponized into part of her identity. That tragedy makes her fight all the more haunting. You are not conquering evil, you are not overcoming inevitability, you are cutting down a figure who is both monstrous and beautiful. Malenia is infamous because she is fair, in the most brutal way possible, of course. Her signature move, a whirlwind of sword strikes that chases the player across the arena, has ended countless runs. It requires not just knowledge, but flawless timing and positioning to survive. Her normal combos are fast, unpredictable, and punishing. She rewards discipline and punishes greed. And if the first phase feels like dueling a perfect warrior, the second is a nightmare. Malenia transforms into the goddess of rot, unleashing devastating scarlet explosions that corrupt the battlefield itself. After clawing your way through phase 1, phase 2 feels unfair at first, but like all From Software fights, it's not impossible. It demands patience, learning, and adaptation. Her transformation into the goddess of rot reflects her curse consuming her. As the fight escalates, the music swells into something operatic and desperate. Unlike Sephiroth's booming chorus, Malenia's score is restrained, elegant, and sorrowful. It doesn't scream power, it whispers inevitability.
Now, rot.
When phase 2 begins, the score shifts into something more terrifying. It is the sound of beauty devouring itself, of grace consumed by rot. There are few lines in gaming as iconic as Malenia's introduction.
Heed my words. I am Malenia, Blade of Miquella, and I have never known defeat.
Her fight represents what makes boss fights so special. They are not just roadblocks, they are emotional experiences, tests of patience, skill, and perseverance. Malenia is brutal, unfair at first glance, but deeply rewarding once you learn her patterns. She is the fight you never forget, the name that echoes in every discussion of video game bosses. Malenia is the final evolution of boss design. She strips away the tricks and focuses on one question: can you beat me? All in all, boss fights are more than just difficult encounters. They are the punctuation marks of video games, the exclamation points, the question marks, the ellipses that linger in a player's memories long after the credits roll. Each boss presents the opportunity for a developer to test everything the player has learned, bringing narrative and gameplay together. By examining these bosses, we have seen 5 distinct approaches to the art of the boss fight, each with its own lessons, triumphs, and legacies. Boss fights are where video games prove themselves as a medium. Unlike film or literature, games allow players to participate in the climax itself. You don't just watch Cloud defeat Sephiroth, or Kratos kill Zeus, or the tarnished endure Malenia. You do it yourself. They turn the narrative into a challenge into catharsis, and catharsis into memory. Beating a great boss isn't just about seeing the credits roll. Great bosses take many forms, from Bowser to Malenia. They can be cartoonish turtles, fallen angels, corrupted scholars, gods of Olympus, or cursed warriors. But what unites them all is the way they all blend design, narrative, mechanics, and music all into one unforgettable experience.